I'm ready to swear your oath.
You don't understand what you'd be giving up. We have no families. None of us will ever father sons.
I don't care about that.
You might, if you knew what it meant.
Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today I'm continuing my analysis of the A Song of Ice and Fire book series. Our next stop is Jon 1, Jon's first POV chapter in the Game of Thrones novel. We did though get a good look at him in Bran 1, and some of what we learned there comes into play here in a big way. So let's dive in. This chapter opens with Jon at the back of the Great Hall of Winterfell, while Ned's children are all seated with their royal counterparts beneath the raised platform where Robert, Cersei, Ned, and Catelyn all sit. Jon thinks how it's one of the few times that he's glad that he's a bastard. Not only is he apart from the Lannister children, who he's unimpressed with, but here he's able to drink as much as he wants, and he's enjoying the stories told by the young squires at his table. And after 4 hours of the feast, Jon has become drunk. Even so, his powers of perception remain strong. This was something that we noticed in Bran 1, where Jon demonstrated more insight than Ned or his siblings. Of Cersei, he observes, his father helped her to her seat, but the queen never so much as looked at him. Even at 14, Jon could see through her smile. And then we have his description of Robert. The king was a great disappointment to Jon. His father had talked of him often, the peerless Robert Baratheon, demon of the trident, the fiercest warrior of the realm, a giant among princes. Jon only saw a fat man, red-faced under his beard, sweating through his silks. He walked like a man half in his cups. The reaction I found most interesting, though, was how he saw Jaime. Sir Jaime was the twin to Queen Cersei, tall and golden, with flashing green eyes and a smile that cut like a knife. He wore crimson silk, high black boots, a black satin cloak. On the breast of his tunic, the lion of his house was embroidered in gold thread, roaring its defiance. Jon found it hard to look away from him. This is what a king should look like, he thought to himself as the man passed. And while this is a further indictment of Robert, there's also more here, perhaps a hint at Jaime's future redemption? It's also possible, though, that in these early chapters, Martin had intended something else for Jaime's character, but that's for another video. Jon dislikes Joffrey at first glance. The only time his judgment is off, though, is when it comes to Myrcella. Close behind came Robb, in gray wool, trimmed with white, the Stark's colors. He had the Princess Myrcella on his arm. She was a wisp of a girl, not quite 8, her hair a cascade of golden curls under a jeweled net. Jon noticed the shy look she gave Robb as they passed between the tables, and the timid way she smiled at him. He decided she was insipid. Robb didn't even have the sense to realize how stupid she was. He was grinning like a fool. Myrcella, of course, is not stupid. So why is Jon so off here when previously he was shown to be so perceptive? Well, I think some jealousy for his position in the family seeps in here. She's being escorted in by Robb, while Jon sits in the back of the hall, and her admiring gaze sparks some ire in him for his situation. So he sees her as stupid, and Robb the same for not realizing how dumb she is. And this is great because it shows that Jon isn't infallible or omniscient despite his ability to see through many things. He's also susceptible to his own emotions. While the back of the room might be great in some ways, it doesn't change how he feels deep down about his place in the Stark family. Another benefit, though, of Jon's seating arrangement is he's the only one to have his direwolf in the hall. He drops a whole chicken down onto the floor for Ghost to eat. And I really enjoyed this excerpt where George gives an understanding of how fearsome and formidable the direwolves are. Dogs moved between tables, trailing after serving girls. One of them, a black mongrel bitch with long yellow eyes, caught scent of the chicken. She stopped and edged under the bench to get a share. Jon watched the confrontation. The bitch growled low in her throat and moved closer. Ghost looked up, silent, and fixed the dog with those hot red eyes. The bitch snapped an angry challenge. She was 3 times the size of the direwolf pup. Ghost did not move. He stood over the prize and opened his mouth, baring his fangs. The bitch tensed, barked again, then thought better of this fight. She turned and slunk away, with one last defiant snap to save her pride. Ghost went back to his meal. Benjen arrives and sees Jon is drunk. He remarks that he believes he was younger than Jon when he first became drunk himself. Benjen observes that his brother doesn't look very festive tonight. Jon sees it too, noticing that Ned is going through all the motions, but he seems rigid and is looking blankly over the room. Jon doesn't mention this, but perhaps the weight of being the hand to Robert is pressing down on Ned. I like this exchange between Jon and Benjen. The queen is angry too, Jon told his uncle in a low, quiet voice. Father took the king down to the crypts this afternoon. The queen didn't want him to go. Benjen gave Jon a careful, measuring look. You don't miss much, do you, Jon? We could use a man like you on the wall. Once again, we get further affirmation of Jon's awareness, but this time from another character. But the big hook here is that Benjen's casual mention of the wall, although not a serious offer to Jon to join the Night's Watch, plants the idea in his head, and Jon won't let it go, even though Benjen pushes back numerous times trying to dissuade him. During this conversation, where Jon insists he's ready for the wall, he very interestingly mentions a Targaryen. Daeron Targaryen was only 14 when he conquered Dorne, Jon said. The young dragon was one of his heroes. A conquest that lasted a summer, his uncle pointed out. Your boy king lost 10,000 men taking the peace, another 50 trying to hold it. The discussion between the two becomes a little intense, with Benjen being dead set against Jon joining the Night's Watch. His uncle says, "Come back to me when you've fathered a few bastards of your own and we'll see how you feel." Jon trembled. "I will never father a bastard," he said carefully. "Never." He spat it out like venom. Noticing the table had grown silent and everyone was looking at him, Jon hurries from the hall, bumping into a serving girl who drops a flagon of wine to the floor. He finally escapes as he hears laughter behind him. And then it's outside where he first runs into Tyrion Lannister. Ghost's initial reaction to him isn't a positive one. He's wary of Tyrion and growls at him when he tries to pet him. At first glance, though, it appears as if Tyrion likes Jon. He does mention him being Ned's bastard, which irritates Jon, particularly after the way he just left Benjen in the hall. Jon was in no mood for anyone's counsel. What do you know about being a bastard? All dwarves are bastards in their father's eyes. You are your mother's true-born son of Lannister. Am I? The dwarf replied, sardonic. Do tell my lord father. My mother died birthing me, and he's never been sure. Before returning to the hall, Tyrion leaves Jon with this advice. Remember this, boy. All dwarfs may be bastards, yet not all bastards need be dwarfs. This is a great chapter as the narrative moved away from the broad description and background information we saw in the initial ones, and the story begins to take shape. There were also so many mentions of kings in this one. Jon was unimpressed with King Robert, but felt that Jaime was how a king should look. He spoke of his hero king, Daeron Targaryen's conquest of Dorne, and then in the last sentence of the chapter, we have this description of Tyrion. When he opened the door, the light from within threw his shadow clear across the yard, and for just a moment, Tyrion Lannister stood as tall as a king. This is an intriguing contrast to Robert Baratheon, who's become a shadow of his once formidable self. And while I don't believe Martin is insinuating here that Tyrion will become king, I think he is pointing out that below the surface, Tyrion is a man with much more ability and potential than we're led to believe. If you enjoyed the video, make sure you hit the like button, and if you're interested in more on A Song of Ice and Fire and House of the Dragon, listen to Caraxes and subscribe. I want to thank everyone for watching, and I'll see you soon.